Am I on? Yep, am on. All right, welcome everyone. It is our 11th annual Excel at Teaching Conference, kicking off today here in Ritz Auditorium. Oh, I like the dance that's going on there. Sean's doing a dance. We might have to join in later. It's just so great that you're here this afternoon for our kickoff session, and I hope that you will find time to kind of come in and out during the day if you can't be here for all of the events. I want to say a big thank you to Jason Guy, Haley Neese, Sarah Federka, and the whole team for putting together this event. It's a lot of work, but it's a day of joy and celebration. And I know that's maybe tough to find when it's rainy and cold outside and it's towards the end of the semester and you have a million things to grade and a million things to do and a million students who need your attention. But if you can take a moment to just pause today and say, wow, I have some really awesome colleagues. This is a really amazing place filled with some really special people. And that's what today's all about. It's about celebrating one another, celebrating the work that we do here. So before we get to our guest speaker, I just want to very quickly go through the layout of the day. Obviously, we are having our opening session right now, and then after this, we will break out into different sessions throughout Old Main, and those are listed in your program, and also more details are in the email that Haley sent out through the CTE if you want to really drill down into the different sessions. Those will be going on, and there's also a room at the end of this hall, Main 204, that's a break room, so if you need a cookie or a snack or a drink, the door is open. Just go on in and help yourself. It's well stocked in there. So as you are going in and about your events this afternoon, that's a place to take a quick break. Later today, after our sessions are done in Old Main, around 4:30, we'll move over to the Scholarship Gallery. Just prior to the Scholarship Gallery is the panel discussion, which is back here in Ritz. And so this will be an opportunity to hear from a bunch of longtime Findlay employees talking about the institutional changes that they've seen over the years. And so there's a wealth of history in their voices and in their stories. And so I hope you're able to stop back and be part of that discussion as well. The Scholarship Gallery takes us across the parking lot into the AMU, and that's where we'll have our poster presentations beginning at 4:30 this afternoon. Many great poster presentations you can see are represented there from different colleges and your colleagues across campus. And then we will go into our faculty awards dinner. And so we have the opportunity there to celebrate some really great achievements among our colleagues across campus. So it's a big day. It's full of a lot of different things going on. So if you're here for part of the day or for the whole thing, I hope you walk away motivated, inspired, maybe a little bit refreshed, having this moment of celebration. So I'm going to turn it over to Diana, but first of all, I just want to thank her for being here today, and she's going to be presenting on Living Our Mission. History reveals that our campus has changed, but our mission has not. I'm so glad she had it in her notes, so I didn't have to look back over my shoulder and see the title. But how do you describe Diana Montague? There's so many ways, but the word that always comes to mind when I think of her is she is a treasure. You're rolling your eyes. It's the truth. She is a treasure. She's a treasure in so many ways. When I think of like the best leaders that I have known throughout my lifetime, there's a consistency about them. And for Diana, from the moment I met her in the early 2000s until today, she's consistent in that she is hopeful and joyful and reliable. She always shows up. She's dedicated, and she loves this place, and it loves her back. We love her back. So I'm really excited for us to spend a little time hearing about her research and the work that she's done to chronicle the history of University of Findlay. So we're going to do that together. So please welcome Diana Montague.
Thank you so much for that incredibly kind introduction. It's like, can I put this on my resume, treasure? I start off with a cliche, which is what I tell my students never start off with. But the only thing the only thing that is constant in life is change, right? And certainly we've seen that throughout our history here. Think about it. I was just getting good at Genzabar, and I was just getting good at Zoom and change. But I've been studying the changes here at Findlay for about the last 2.5 years and digging through 4 decades of our history, and the journey's been quite an adventure. I've worked here most of that time that I've been studying, and so I've lived through most of these changes one at a time. But when you pull them all together, if you put it in one place, it's really quite impressive. So in our time, the last 40 years or so, we've tripled our enrollment. We've grown from a small liberal arts college into a university with 6 colleges. We've expanded our property exponentially, and we've gone from a struggling NAIA athletic program to basking in national NCAA limelight. And this afternoon's 3:30 panel, head basketball coach Charlie Ernst will be here, so hopefully he'll share some of our changes in athletics over that time frame. So clearly, we have changed and grown in the last 40 years. Yet at our core, our purpose, our mission of preparing students for meaningful lives and productive careers, it's pretty much stayed the same, even if we've had different phrasings over the years. The current one that we have had in this incarnation since 2001. Living your mission, whether personal or institutional, means remaining true to your core values, no matter what the changes or challenges are that come your way. And that's not always easy. As my dear friend and co-author of this upcoming book, Sarah Fedorka, has noted in her previous presentations, and she will go into great detail in our forthcoming book, our mission statement has a small but very large conjunction in it. Equipping students for meaningful lives and productive careers. You can certainly have one without the other, and sometimes they compete with each other. Today, I'd like to highlight some of our changes that we've experienced over the last 40 years, and hopefully offer some insight as to how those changes have impacted how we have lived our mission of and. So what are some of the things that have changed over the last 40 years? Certainly, our academic offerings have grown. We became quite creative back in the 80s and 90s as we added 2 traditional majors with some niche majors. We had the first 4-year hazardous materials management degree east of the Mississippi. We started that in 1986. We had an equestrian program started in the 70s. It was mainly Western equestrian at that point. In 1982, we added the pre-vet program, which continues to be one of our largest majors. And then we expanded our equestrian offerings in the early 90s when we expanded to adding English equestrian. So you could start to see these were some specialized majors that started to draw a great deal of students. We also taught in 2 medium security prisons down in Lima for about 25 years. We started teaching down there in 1984. And at the time, the students were funded completely through federal Pell Grants and significant state funding. And so while the students who are on main campus may not have had much connection with our South campuses, the fact that we were bringing in a good deal of money from the prison programs really made a difference in our budget up here. Our health professions degrees began to flourish in the 1990s and into the aughts, so much so that they broke from the College of Sciences into their own College of Health Professions, and then later, our School of Pharmacy became the College of Pharmacy. So as our programs are growing and increasing, our enrollment grew. In 1984, this is a combination of full-time and part-time students. we had just over 1,400 students. And so the end of my time frame that I studied here was in 2019, and we had just over 4,700 students. Our enrollment peaked in 2008 with 5,761 students. And you go, well, what happened then? Well, the Great Recession happened then, and that truly impacted our enrollment. So this data comes from IPEDS, if you've heard that acronym before, which is the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. And other data that IPEDS keeps is who's on your campus? What is the campus makeup? And we had some changes in ours. In 1983, just over about 52% of the folks on campus were male. From 1988 to 91, that number grew to about 58% men. And then in 1997 was the first year that we had more women than men. And we had 53% females to males. And then that difference peaked in 2018 with 65% women. And just a note, IPEDS keeps track of gender on a binary scale, so that's how this was so cut and dried there. So, enrollment numbers have grown, our programs have grown. How was that reflected in the degrees that we offered? In May of 1988, we held our 100th commencement service. We granted 331 degrees. 224 of those were Bachelor of Arts. 7 were Bachelor of Science. Yeah, I hear the gasps. And 100 were Associate of Arts. The next year was the last year that we held commencement as Findlay College. That year we granted 278 degrees. Of those, 187 were Bachelor of Arts, 9 were Bachelor of Science, and 82 were Associate of Arts. You can imagine commencement services were much shorter. 30 years later, it looked a lot different. In the May of 2019 commencement, we granted 1,078 degrees. Of those, 141 were doctorates, 363 were masters, 37 were Bachelors of Arts, 500 Bachelor of Science degrees, and 37 Associate's degrees. Not only did the number of degrees we'd granted over that 30-year period more than triple, almost quadrupled, 500 of those were graduate degrees, how much we had changed. And by far, the number one degree we granted, was the Bachelor of Science. So let me show you some stark comparisons to how the undergraduate programs changed over that time frame. In 1989, we granted 187 Bachelor of Arts, and in 2019, we granted 37 BAs. In 89, those poor little 9 folks all stood by themselves up there. We granted 9 degrees of Bachelor of Science, and in 2019, we gave 500 Bachelor of Science degrees. When the Vice President for Academic Affairs asks the candidates for the Bachelor of Science degree to please rise during commencement, Kaler Complex shakes. Clearly, we've changed. So the university is clearly not the small liberal arts college that it was when Findlay College first started its first classes back in 1886. Findlay has evolved into a comprehensive university with broad programming and multiple graduate degrees. As of May of this year, we offered 85 bachelor's degrees, 10 master's degrees, and 5 doctoral degrees. So how did we get so big? I want to show you a little bit of how our organization changed over that time frame. Back in 1984, we were 7 divisions and 2 centers. So just briefly, those divisions were business, administration, fine arts, humanities, math and computer science, natural sciences, social sciences, teacher education. We had 2 centers. One was the International Center for Language and Resource Development, and the other was the Center for Equine and Pre-Vet Studies. So at the time, equine and pre-vet weren't with natural sciences. So how did we, what do we do with them then? 10 years after this division structure, we start to see the first colleges. So in the fall of '94, we had 4 new colleges, each with a dean. The College of Graduate and Extended Studies, the dean was Susan Bakaitis. College of Sciences was led by Luke Bartolomeo. College of Liberal Arts, the first dean was Dale Brocker. And the College of Professional Studies combined the divisions of business and education, and that was led by Jim Hoddeshell. 5 years later, the business programs and the education programs were growing, so they split the College of Professional Studies into the College of Business and the College of Education. So some of these should be familiar now. And at that point, the international education components moved over to the College of Liberal Arts. 4 years later, the health professions, which were growing significantly, they split from, the healthcare majors split from the College of Sciences and became the College of Health Professions. And then 6 years later, the School of Pharmacy became the College of Pharmacy. So just take note here that the College of Health Professions, College of Pharmacy, they didn't exist 25 years ago. They weren't anywhere in those division structures. So significant change. We have a lot of majors in this area. We have great new options for productive careers. And so many of these folks, a good part of our current identity comes from these areas that weren't here 25 years ago. So that change, I think, is really interesting to see. Some other more recent change in structure. In 2018, College of Liberal Arts changed its name to the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences to better represent all the areas in that college. And then beginning January 1st, COS and the College of Business will combine to create the College of Business and Humanities. So we continue to see changes. It looks pretty different now than it did back in 1984. So we've increased our enrollment. We've increased the number of faculty that we have. We've added significant number of programs, both graduate, undergraduate. Where do you put them all? Well, clearly your property has to grow. While Old Main is still the focal point of the main campus, what was once an institution confined to one city block has grown to 86 acres on the main campus. And we own more than 350 total acres in Hancock County, so a bit bigger than that block. So this is an aerial shot of the main campus taken in the late 80s, and I'm kind of guessing about 87, 88, looking at what's not there. So I'm going to want to walk you through what's different than now to get us up to current day. So at the time, the corner of Fraser and Main, there was no Weinbrenner Theological Center. At this point, there was a former gas station, which was the physical plant office. The west side of that parking lot, which is kind of like the corner of Fraser and Corey, there were a couple of houses where people were still living. Egner still had a glass breezeway between the theater and the classroom part of the building. There was no main floor restrooms, no elevator. The AMU still had an open courtyard, and I don't know if you could see from there or not, but there were big trees in the middle of the Union there. Outdoors, but in the middle. We did not have Gardner Fine Arts yet. At that time, there were several houses on the corner. One was the Bucher Center, which I'll talk about here momentarily. And then there were two other houses that the English faculty had offices in for some years. Corey Street was still open, serving as a raceway for Findlay High School students at 2:45 p.m. every school day. It was like playing Frogger if you're trying to get from the English houses over to Old Main. Gardner Fitness Center had not yet been built. That was shortly after this photo was taken. College Street was still a through street, and a paved driveway that we know now in front of Old Main was not yet there. And the arch was still precariously close to Main Street. I'm going to show you another aerial from 2006 shortly, but I want to talk a little bit about, well, what happened between that picture and the next one. The Gardner Fitness Center opened in 1989. It was the first new construction on our campus in 20 years, so that was quite a big deal. Off the main campus, but still key growth. We purchased the Western Farm in 1984, early 1984, which has since grown to 153 acres. We purchased the James L. Child Jr. Equestrian Complex over off of Olive Street back in 1991, and that has grown to about 52 acres. In 1998, we opened the Glenn and Helen Stout Alumni Center over on Corey Street. And standing in this photo is John Steffen. He was the alumni director at the time, and he's a 1966 graduate of Findlay College. Also in 1998, we started building Kaler. And so here we see the infrastructure going up. Here's the inside. In October of 98, they were laying the base of the ice in Klaus Ice Arena, and soon after we had two hockey teams. In 1999, we bought a branch of People's Bank and turned it into the bookstore, and this was on Main Street until we moved it over to CBSL in 2017. And then one more here, we moved the Bell. I say we like I did it. The Bell was moved from the tower in Old Main to where it is now on the Corey Street Mall, and it has its own little brick kingdom over there where Derek joyfully rings in the graduates each commencement. So I go back to this photo from 1987, 88, and it looks a bit different than the one that they took in 2006. About 18 years difference in those photos. So what has changed? I'm going to take you another little tour here. Weinbrenner Theological Seminary was built. It opened in 2005. Those houses were knocked down because we needed more parking. The AMU was remodeled and closed in 1990. The Egner Glass Breezeway was bricked over. They redid the theater. They put in accessible restrooms on the main floor, and eventually they added an elevator over there. Gardner Fine Arts Pavilion opened in 1997. Corey Street had closed a couple years before that in 92, so we foiled all the Findlay High hot rods there. And then also in 97, we put up the Brewer Center for Health Sciences. So hopefully you're hearing, 97 and 98 were big building years. The Teaching, Learning, Training Center, also known lovingly as the Trailers, was standing between 2001 and 2015. We acquired Owens Community College in 2006, and it became the Davis Street building. I don't know if you could see from there or not, but this was the old part of the building we hadn't built on yet. College Street was closed, and we made that groovy little paved road we now have off Main Street in front of Old Main, and you empty out onto Fraser Street, which hopefully is safer. And then in 1990, we refurbished the arch. We put the University of Findlay on one side, turned it around, and moved it back 30 feet from the street. So for safety purposes, it was a good idea. We also built some other sidewalk area there. So lots of changes. Even just you could see on the between those two aerial shots. Later, 5 years later, we built the Davis Street Building Addition in 2011. And then we took down the trailers in 2015, tore down a block of little white houses, my favorite phrase. And then we built CBSL, and that the Center for Student Life in the College of Business opened in 2017. Lots of changes, lots of growth. So all of that, I would say, is relatively easy to see. Some of the things that changed may not be quite as easy to see, but were just as critical. And one of those was technology. Certainly, some of you are laughing at the old photo. Yeah, that used to be cutting-edge tech, right? Back in 1996, Dick Kern, who wrote the first 100 years history of Findlay College, he did a survey with longtime employees, asking them, what are things that have made the university successful? What are challenges we've had? And similar questions to what I asked when I sent out a survey to longtime employees 2 years ago. So, for what it's worth, the themes were the same. There were concerns about technology, budget, salaries, so yes, some things never change. But one of the points that was made on one of the surveys on technology I wanted to share, Ann Albert was a professor of mathematics for quite a while. And on her survey for Dick Kern, she was not very happy with the technology in the classrooms. She said you were lucky to have an overhead projector in your classroom. And so if you want to come borrow mine, you can come over to my classroom right now in Egner 212, and I would be delighted to share it with you. And if you're thinking, did you really teach with those? Yes. Dr. Linda Peck, who was in charge of our pre-vet program for a very, very long time, she is here seen teaching her 437,000th section of anatomy and physiology using the overhead projector, so to see parts of the body. So, yes, we use them to teach. So technology certainly has changed in our classrooms. Now they all have projection and computers, and in some of the newer buildings, they've got smart boards. But how did technology change the way we communicate with each other? Before we had email and texting and social media, we had face-to-face communication. Up in the cave, perhaps, but most of it went on in the basement of Old Main, because that's where you went to go get your mail and your printing. So when I first came here in 1986, we all had our own little mailbox. There was this bank of mailboxes, and you had to remember your combination. And so once mail call was 11 o'clock, everybody was down there. And so you got to see people, and that's how you communicated. The other place down in Old Main, in that lovely basement, was in the print shop. Now, this is a more contemporary shop. I took this just as they were getting ready to move over to CBSL. But the print shop was, man, that was a place to be. We didn't have photocopiers in any of the offices. We didn't have computers to start with. And so you typed up your syllabus or your assignments, and there was no Canvas or Blackboard, so you had to get it duplicated. And so you went down there to fill out your forms and get them duplicated, and that's where you saw everybody. So we didn't have the technology, but we still had ways to pass along messages back then. But there was some technology. We had voicemail. And Nikki laughs. But one of the things that Nikki, in fact, remembered on the survey that I put out was, back in the day, then President Zirkle would leave 10-minute voicemails on Friday afternoons on all the faculty phones. So you would come in on Monday morning and you'd have to get all the way through the message before you got on with your day. So we had some technology there, but it certainly has changed significantly. Another thing that technology changed was our registration process. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, yeah, you remember this, don't you, Sarah? Yes, so, yep. Yeah, so a little bit of background for those of you who weren't around. Arena registration, which came before Workday, which then Genzabar and Carson. We would, each division or department would have a table in the AMU, and you would have this box of sets of stickers, and each sticker represented a seat in a section of a course. And then we would let students in every 10 minutes, according to how many credits they had, and then they would run around to all the tables trying to get the right sticker to go with whatever their intended schedule was that they had after they had met with their advisor. So it was kind of organized chaos, actually, to watch them run around, and they knew ahead of time, okay, these classes are going to close, so they'd have to make a beeline over there. And then if you got 3 stickers and put them on the back, and then one of your courses was closed, if you had to change, you had to peel off the stickers to go get a different section, and so with your tail between your legs, you'd bring the sticker back to the table and ask for a different one. So it was quite the process. And then the registrar's office would gather the cards, and then they would have to manually type in everybody's schedule. So 1998 may seem like a long time ago, but golly, that was pretty late in life to still be doing this manually. But I found this photo of the Fine Arts Division guys. Jim Greenwood there is the third from the right. He's guarding the stickers like he always guarded the stickers. So lots of changes. But some things have stayed the same, but they've gotten bigger. One big area is the way we care for students. Karen Yingling was our first director of the health center. She worked here for 30 years. And she remembers when she first got the keys to the Bucher Memorial Health Center, and this building, the Bucher House, was where Gardner Fine Arts is right now. And she, God bless her, she not only took Dick Kern's survey back in 1996, she took mine in 2023. So when the book comes out, there's lots of stories from Karen Yingling on all the growth at the health center. Anyway, a story about the Bucher Center that Karen tells. Many visiting professors and faculty stayed upstairs until their houses were ready to move into. There was 4 bedrooms in the top floor of this building. I remember the year I opened the back door and about got knocked over from the smell of sausage and eggs cooking. Apparently, the incoming instructor and his wife decided to cook with an electric skillet on the patient treatment table. That only happened once. We made other arrangements for new faculty after that. The Bucher Center also had the counseling services were in there, and I think career services were in there. Jan Taylor was in there for a short time as well. So the health center got to use new technology in 1989. So yeah, we're registering students and we're computerizing the health center. It made it that much easier to keep track of how many visits we had to the health center. The health center moved from the Bucher Center over to the current place over in Cosiano in 1998. And Karen had noted how the use of the health center had increased over the years as our enrollment increased. In fall of 1992, she said there were 643 visits to the health center. 3 years later, there was 1,451 visits. So she said on average the next year there was between 20 and 25 visits a day. And then in 2008, the year that Karen retired, they were up to 60 visits a day at Cosiano. And I'm not a math major here, but basic math, that's like 8,000 visits a year. So incredible growth in the way we continue to serve our students in that time frame. The numbers keep getting bigger. More recent data here in 2013 to 2019, and I use that time frame because it was the end of my book's time frame. In that 7-year time frame, Cosiano had an average per year of over 7,500 student visits and 2,400 employee visits. Don't have to be a math major to see that that's 10,000 visits a year over there. So the fine folks over there, the nurses who taught us how to properly social distance during the pandemic and kept us healthy throughout, have continued to serve yeoman's cause here. So I got some Cosiano trivia, not a contest, just some trivia. The busiest months for Cosiano, historically, student visits are highest in March, September, and October, but employee visits have been highest in November, half of which are probably mine. The Bucher Center, the building that I had showed you, it was raised when they put the Gardner Fine Arts Pavilion up, but the Bucher Center itself and the counseling center moved over to Fraser Street. We have been offering free confidential counseling services to students since 1986. They continue to provide incredible benefits for our students. I only have one year here in 2017. At that point, we had 3 full-time licensed professional clinical counselors. And in this year, 2017, there were over 2,000 visits to counseling services. And this was before the pandemic. And so we can see how incredibly important these services and serving our students, it's continued to grow and how important they are. We also serve our students, take care of our students at the Oilers Success Center. We serve thousands of visits each year here too. And there's history before the Oilers Success Center. Back in the 1980s, over in the library, we started what was called the Tri-S Center, and the Tri-S stood for Supportive Skill Systems. And this was designed to help students, mainly first-generation college students who didn't have understand what some of the requirements were for going into college. Excuse me. So we began the Tri-S Center. We also began the Foundations program, which was designed to build more specific resources for at-risk students. And that morphed into the Gateway program, again, as we added more structured resources for at-risk students to help them be successful. So the Oilers Success Center deals with not only at-risk students, but students who need anything can walk in there, whether it's advising help, they have faculty coaches, there's career planning. You need anything, you start there first. So it's grown from the Tri-S to the SOAR office, which was SOAR office. Got to spell that out there. Until it became the Oilers Success Center. Technology has also helped the Oilers Success Center. Yay, Starfish. Since its adoption in 2011, Starfish's capabilities have really expanded beyond the flags and the kudos. We have early semester and midterm warnings that can now go through Starfish. And it can be used by students to set up appointments with their advisors. So it's been a really helpful tool, communication tool, to keep students connected and keep everybody updated on their performance. As more faculty and staff began to use Starfish, we saw the number of flags, which are raised if students aren't doing well in a course or we haven't seen them for 3 weeks, or issues that we need to deal with immediately, or the kudos, which is when somebody has done a great job or they've done something very helpful that we want to acknowledge. 6 years after this, there were 6,300 flags, so people still needed some help. But we had over 9,200 kudos. That positive reinforcement is just as important as highlighting where students need help, and I think we've found that to be a very useful tool. In the beginning, I highlighted the importance of "and" in our mission, meaningful lives and productive careers. I think we can easily see how we've addressed productive careers with all our expansion of our academic programs, the growth of our facilities. Productive careers are relatively easy to measure. Not so meaningful lives. I think like productive careers, you can kind of, what am I planning for? Meaningful lives, often it's like looking back. Was that a meaningful life? So how are we setting students up so that they have meaningful lives? That first part of "and" in our mission statement. Here are some examples. We give them opportunities to experience culture in so many ways. Some of them we bring in guest speakers, all different types of guest speakers, from political leaders to spiritual leaders and business leaders. We bring Broadway culture to Weinbrenner twice a year now. Beyond giving them opportunities for culture, we encourage our students to find passions in their own life that maybe be well beyond what they're studying for their major. They can join the band, they can join the choir, they can perform on stage, they can be behind the stage helping. We also encourage our students to participate in their community. One of the first experiences that our new students have after they go through the Arch, the next day they all participate in the Orientation Service Project. We've been doing this since 2002. We send all the new students out into the community to not only learn about the community, but to help build that community. This here is a shot from 2002, our first year. We helped build the Frisbee golf course out at the reservoir. We've also shown and helped our students engage, and our faculty engage with the community. Here's some examples where faculty and students in the health professions worked with Gliding Stars, where they helped children who had extra needs that wouldn't normally be able to go ice skating, to help them not only learn to ice skate, but they would do performances as well. So a great program for engaging in the community. We have our own Mazza Museum, which not only gives great options and opportunities within the museum itself, but like a Fun Day Sunday. Hundreds of people and thousands over the year come in to learn and experience literature, reading, fun, science. So a really good way for us to connect with the community. We have modeled how to help those in need. And Dave Haar and his Sodexo crew over the last 20 years have done a yeoman's work in raising literally tons and tons and tons of food to feed those who are hungry in our community. And what I think a good way to model meaningful life. We have modeled a sense of gratitude to others, particularly for those who have served our country to preserve freedom. Our Veterans Wall over in CBSL is one place where it's permanently, we show that gratitude, and then on Veterans Day, we have more of an audience there. We give our students an opportunity to build a sense of belonging. It could be socially, it might be through sports. And sometimes they come back because we invite them back, right? To share their meaningful lives and productive careers at homecoming. So it's good to celebrate. And sometimes when they come back later and they stay a while. hopefully for a while, to help us equip the next generation for meaningful lives and productive careers. While we have built campus programs and we've expanded our campus, I would suggest that it is indeed the people that we hire that are critical for modeling meaningful lives and productive careers. We hire good people, and some of them stay for a good long while, long enough to get their framed things at the celebration dinners. So lots of them. And those are just a few. I could do another 150 slides of all the fine people who are here every day helping to equip our students for meaningful lives and productive careers. I also want to acknowledge a few people who have played a key part in our history but have gone before us. Jim Hotteshell was here for 60 years, and he coached multiple sports, and he was in charge of the education area. I mean, he was truly a Findlay icon. Don Stanslawski started our very successful pharmacy program. Shiv Gupta came in 1969, and for 45 years, he was an icon of the business division and then College of Business. And then Dr. Paul Davis, who just recently passed away, started our successful PA program. We also have had some friends who were passionate about their students, and they were characters of their own accord, yet they left us way too early. Mariana Hofer, a poet and photographer, was the goddess of tough English 104 cases. Dave Allen, who was a faculty marshal at the time he passed away, was UF's #1 fan, rightly proclaimed on the license plates of his car. Jerry Mallett, who had a delightful personality and great sense of humor, built the Mazza Museum from the 4 pieces of original art that were on display from 1982 down in the basement of Schaefer Library. And theater director Barry Alexander brought passion and controversy to our Egner stage. Clearly, our history reflects how much our story has changed over the last 40 years or so. But despite our growth, some things have stayed the same. We have remained a collegial campus with caring and engaging faculty, staff, and students, and that's no small feat. In a volatile world of rancor and fear, this campus remains a campus filled with truly nice, helpful people. Indeed, some things stay the same. We still bring them in, the first-year students, in through the arts to welcome them into our community as they begin building their own stories. And then we usher them out as we send them on their way to build their own meaningful lives and productive careers. Everyone who comes to Findlay, whether it be a student, employee, everyone builds their own story, contributing to the complex and rich history of our whole institution. Certainly the pieces don't always fit real perfectly or come in on time. As you can see here, 46 and 239 hadn't even made it to the party when we were putting this together. But when we step back and reflect, the bigger picture becomes a bit clearer. I think we can see in our history how we've grown stronger from the roots that we planted back in 1882 as we continue to equip our students for meaningful lives and productive careers. Thank you. Please join us back here at 3:30 for a fabulous panel of longtime Findlay employees who are going to share their stories. It should be a good hour. Oh.
Before you head off to the next sessions, on behalf of the university, Chris and I would just like to thank Diana. I'm probably going to cry. because I really can't think of anyone who more meaningfully embodies productive careers and meaningful lives. And as you know, Diana will retire this May, and so we just wanted to acknowledge all the work that you have done and the ways that you have left such a profound legacy at this university. You have inspired us, you have taught us, you have led us, you have served with us, you have affected positively the lives of so many students and so many employees. It has been my great honor and privilege to work with you on this project. And I will just say that if you read the program for the awards carefully, you will see that Diana Montague is one of the few people who have won all 3 of our major university awards. She has been recognized for her teaching, her service, and with the Founders Award for Excellence. So I would just like us to give a round of applause to Diana. Thank you for spending this time with us, and we now encourage you to please enjoy the rest of our afternoon sessions. Thank you.